part of Locked On Sports Atlanta on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Appreciate everybody for jumping in, man, and joining me on the evening. Of course, I'm your host for the Locked On HAWKS postcast. In the event that you've been living under a rock and don't know what you're watching and listening to, that's exactly what it is. Of course, we have the chance to enjoy not just this episode, but for a big reason behind why. 122-102, 20-point victory after leading by 30 at one point in time in this game. Victory by the Atlanta Hawks. Always feels good to be able to say you got a victory when you're rocking the red. That is, especially if we're talking about one of those, prestigious franchises like the Los Angeles Lakers. Of course, it always feels good, especially when it's at home where the Hawks haven't been playing nearly as good. We're going to go over quite a few different things on tonight, of course, where we watched the Atlanta Hawks when they obviously had taken down the Los Angeles Lakers, and reasons behind why, some of the things we don't nearly talk about nearly enough, and what does this big lopsided win over the Lakers mean for the Atlanta Hawks. And plus, of course, we're going to jump into our turning point segment where we'll talk about some optimism in only their second game of the night. Only their second game in as many as that many days. Back-to-back nights looks like a tale of two totally different days. Games, night and day, apples and oranges, whatever that you want to call it. Not before we let you guys know, of course, that this episode of the Locked On Hawks postcast is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code Locked On NBA. That is LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com. Go there for 50% off of your first year. Let's jump right on into it, because there were a couple keys that I thought was really important in this particular game in terms of things that I really felt like the Atlanta Hawks really needed to do on tonight. The first thing is to do the obvious, especially when everybody's looking forward to the big-time matchup between Dyson Daniels on the defensive side and Luka Doncic, who's leading the NBA with over 40 points a game right about now. Controlling the controllables, I think, was probably the main key here. You're not going to be able to stop a guy like a Luka Doncic. You could probably only pray to, at very best situation, be able to contain him. You was able to keep him at about 22 tonight, 11 assists and 5 rebounds. So containing him, did a good job, and staying home on defense, picking up at half, because the ability. Got to give him a little bit of space, but can't give somebody like Luka too much space as the primary ball handler for the Los Angeles Lakers. And I think that they did a really good job. Certain shots he's going to hit, you just have to be okay with living with it. He's just that kind of talent, but it's the other guys around him that you can't afford to let beat you, and that's something that the Atlanta Hawks didn't allow. So you got to give him a grade, probably A, on something like that. And then definitely was in need of the bench mob. All the guys that were needed and necessary to step up. Really kind of felt like when the Atlanta Hawks rotation got going and they really needed to key in on some key contributors and get some stops, obviously down the stretch, things of that nature. They were able to do that. Everybody knew their assignment on tonight, and I think that was something that obviously played a big key role. Last night, we talked a little bit about some of the X factors for the team. We'll get into that here in just a second, because they were just as big of a part in this win as anybody was. And I think probably the biggest thing, and I love hearing the reaction from some of you guys, even in the comment section, is the fact that this was a win in which you didn't have all of these different, starters, right? You didn't have you didn't have Trey, you didn't have Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who is the starter, I guess, by default, if you will, playing the point guard position by committee, who's been a really big piece for this team in the games that they have won. Not having Kristaps Porzingis, Luke Kennard's come off the bench, who's a really big, ideal piece for this team, an X factor. And you kind of look around like, where's their scoring going to come from? We know that in best case scenario, being able to maybe get some stops especially having the home crowd on your side. Certain things are going to go your way, but I'm not quite sure that anybody saw this particularly happening on tonight, which is really big for them. And I don't know if this is a matter of at least feeling like the way that it used to feel, where it's like, man, teams is just coming into Atlanta to go to the gentleman's club. It's just a stop on the way to the next place, if you will. But nonetheless, they really got the ball rolling here on tonight. And so many different players. What was it? I think 7 or 8 different players scored in double digits on tonight, which I think was fantastic and really honed in on the defensive side. Started out hot. I think this is the first time we could probably I really can say and feel comfortable saying that in back-to-back games, the team got off to a fast start. And I feel like for the first probably 7 or 8 games, we couldn't always say that. Certainly didn't put it together consistently and persistently in back-to-back games. For whatever reason, something has certainly lit a fire up underneath their belly, and they've been starting out hot. Obviously, the end result on last night's game wasn't what we wanted it to be, but it appears that they're learning their lessons, and especially with a really young team as they are. What is it? I think the 3rd youngest team in the NBA. So we'll discuss that, all of that and more here in just a second. But I think that this was I think what it means for this team in terms of takeaways, in terms of what we learned from this team, obviously being able to win without the star players, that they are developing a chemistry amongst one another with stretching the floor. And I think that was probably one of the biggest keys for tonight's game, is the ability to be able to make the defense work. Throwing some skip passes across the court for wide open shots, for wide open guys, pump fake hesitations, and being able to get to the rim, get to the basket, to free up some other guys, and utilizing the fresh legs, obviously, as the bench mob coming off of the bench, in which that really helped them outscore the Los Angeles Lakers, really, from so many not only key statistics in this game, but so many key possessions in this game from everywhere pretty much on the floor, outscoring them from the field. Obviously, finally getting a chance to where we see the Atlanta Hawks shoot pretty doggone good from 3. Not really sure I feel confident and comfortable with saying, something to get used to per se, but getting used to it for the night nonetheless is always a beautiful thing. And then from the free throw line, where sometimes they tend to struggle every now and then, haven't been the greatest, certainly far from the worst, but haven't been the greatest from the free throw line. 90% from the free throw line. I think they missed maybe one free throw and didn't even go to the free throw line a ton. Being one of the best teams in the NBA, I call it hungry hippo. That's my go-to. Dump the ball inside to the big man, or if not, being able to break down the defense, utilizing first steps, get the defense to collapse and get some wide open dishes under the basket for very easy dunks and or layups. Saw that many times on tonight, especially in the second half. I thought that they were fantastic from that standpoint. And it all started with the fast start. 37 points in the first quarter, 12 assists on top of that. And I think that they had 37 assists on the night. Sharing the basketball, that going all the way back to some of those skip passes and spreading the floor, forcing the Los Angeles Lakers defense to kind of shift and work. And that's kind of how you tire guys out. And if you really pay attention to it, some of the basics and fundamentals of this game, which I think that they not only, utilize, but put forth on display tonight, was not putting the ball on the floor too many times. There was no useless, or waste of possessions. They, utilized that in every possible way that they could. And I really do believe that this could, and hopefully fingers, toes, I's, T's, X's, everything crossed as possible, that it gave them a different level of confidence, because you didn't only just win without Trey. You won with, having essentially a 3rd string point guard in Wallace, and guys that are still getting used to playing in an Atlanta Hawks uniform for the very first or second season first time or second or first season or second season. That is Zachary Risachet, who is in the lineup. That is Dyson Daniels, who is in the lineup. That is Muhammad Gay, who is in the lineup. Oyeka Okongu, while he's been in the Hawks uniform for longer than just one season, still considering the fact that he isn't a consistent starter, last year really helped him out, I think, a ton on getting used to knowing what to do and how to handle that role in case he ever get put in situations a year later, in which he did. So, of course, all those things were fantastic. Again, 122, 102 for the Hawks. We're going to get ready to cut to a break here in just a second. And on the other side, talk a little bit about perhaps maybe what the turning point was for this game, and even jump in some of the comment section, get some of you guys' opinions on this whole thing. We'll be back here in just a second. This episode of the Locked On Hawks postcast is brought to you by DoorDash. The NBA season, as you know, is heating up while it's getting a little bit chilly outside. DoorDash has found the perfect way to keep all the fans not only engaged, but perhaps in their bag all season long. That's what the cool kids are calling it. So that's what we're going to go with. Whether you're watching the highlights or your fantasy team or just your favorite player, whatever the case may be, DoorDash makes everything better. And it's the official on-demand delivery platform of the NBA, and even celebrating with something super special since the holidays are coming up. Why not be in a given mood? It's called the Bag Drop, where every time an NBA player, scores 50 points in a game, DoorDash drops 50% off your order with Dash Pass on the very next day, and you're automatically entered for a chance to win some really cool things. Who doesn't love winning, free stuff? Get all kinds of really awesome swag and really cool gear and things that you actually really, really want. I think the best part probably about this is when you think DoorDash, you think about food. What are they doing? Expanding the brand, going beyond food. And now you got some really cool other items that you can partake in. And I just think it's one of the super coolest things that there is. Why not? Did me a little bit of door dashing earlier this week while watching some basketball myself. That's one of the best things I think going right now. Next time someone goes off for 50, you know what to do. Use the promo code NBA50 the next time to get 50% off on DoorDash with Dash Pass. Plus a shot at the bag drop. Dash Pass members only, 50% off up to $10 the day after the 50-point game with the promo code. Terms, of course, do apply. No purchase necessary. Ends on April 13th. Think you got a lot of time? Not enough time. Open to U.S. residents 21 or older. Visit DoorDashInYourBag.com for full details. DoorDash in your bag all season long. This episode of the Locked On Hawks postcast is brought to you by FanDuel, where, as you know, unless you've been living under a rock, the NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than it is where else? At FanDuel, of course, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. So even if you missed the start of the game, you want to get in on some of the live betting odds, things of that nature, of course, they have that to offer as well. So you can jump in on all of the action. Anything from who will score the very next possession all the way to maybe some fourth quarter comebacks, perhaps. Plus, you can even combine your live bets, parlay, and different things like that for a shot at an even bigger payout. So it keeps everything exciting, of course, when your team's trying to make that late push in the game. Right now, don't want to miss out on this offer. FanDuel giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So, might want to take this keynote. Head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Go check it out. This episode of the Locked On Hawks postcast is brought to you by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every single day on Prize Picks. Being right can get you paid. Of course, we all know that. You need to make sure you go over there and try it. I've checked it out quite a few times. You don't want to be the person that's missing out after the neighbors and the friends and the colleagues and the constituents and everybody else has taken all a part of the excitement of the sports this season. Whether you're following the NFL, NBA, pro basketball, pro football, college basketball, whatever the case may be, there's no better time to jump in on all of this action. If you haven't heard, it's also the simplest way to play. You just pick more or less of one or at least two players and stats. If you get them right, of course, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds to do so. So everything's really quick and fast and in a hurry. Get all that dropped into your account immediately after you win. Prize Picks, the way that it operates, including California, Texas, Georgia, from the Big Apple to the Pineapple, from the Golden State to the Frozen State, all across the board. Anybody can take a part in all of this. You want to make sure that you check it out by downloading the Prize Picks app today and use the code Locked On NBA to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code Locked On NBA for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Again, appreciate you guys, everybody, for kind of joining in and being a part of the program here on tonight. Whether you're listening live right now, we're going to listen a little bit later. Overly grateful and thankful for you guys being a part of all of it. This next episode, of course, what I want to talk about is one of the more intriguing things that happen throughout the course and the duration of the game. You listen to the postcast, and you already know what to do. You know what's coming up. That is nothing less than some of those key possessions during the game. And that is called Turning Point.
Time to reveal where the game was won or lost. It's the Turning Point.
Some of the biggest things that transpired in this game, I think, was where it seems like for the last, I don't know how many years, if I'm just being really transparent, that we've been having conversations about the third quarter. Rearing its ugly head oftentimes, and what we saw on last night look obviously completely different. Something where it just seems like the offense got stagnant, couldn't make a shot, couldn't throw the rock in the ocean from the boat, for crying out loud. It felt like the rim had a lid on it. On tonight, it felt like the team not only in some instances couldn't miss a shot on purpose, but also when you pair that, and this is what makes the Atlanta Hawks so dangerous, when you pair that along with the ability to be able to get stops on an elite level. Everything was done collectively as a unit. You've seen, some of the key contributors and role players, if you will, bench mob, if you will, get involved in, I believe, a 22-4 run in the third quarter, where that lasted over a 6-minute stretch. Where we saw the Atlanta Hawks just kind of pick it up on the defensive end. And we all kind of felt like and knew they can do that. That's what you go out there and get Dyson Daniels for. That's what you go out there and get guys like Zachary Resache for by, drafting him. Mohamed Gay had a ridiculous game, career high in points on tonight, that being 21, of course, an assist as well. That being 7, shot it well from the field, career high there. Shot it well from 3. Career high there. Mohamed Gay, as I've been saying all along for I don't know how long, and you might want to pay attention. If you haven't gotten the memo, it's time to wake up and snap out of it. Mohamed Gay, are we going into say, oh, he one of them ones and he's the real deal? And I don't know if we're saying all of that, but when you talk about a guy who's just really fresh out of college for the most part, and fresh out of College Park for the most part, we talked about, earlier, Onyeka Okongwu, who benefited from some of these starting minutes on last year. Mohamed Gay, who had a lot of starting minutes on last year, bringing some energy, a lot of things. We talked about what showed up on the stat sheet, some of the things that don't show up on the stat sheet. tapping the ball out for second chance points, things of that nature, offensive rebounding, also hustle points, getting on the ground after loose balls and just keeping plays alive. That's something that brings an extra energy that I feel rubs off on the Atlanta Hawks. Asa Newell, who feels like he can just do no wrong every time he checks into the game. Not only is he making shots, but he's like, there's a thing for players who help you win games. There's a thing for about players that help you lose games. Asa Newell is a player that only helps you win, doesn't appear to ever help you lose games, and is not afraid of the big moment. Fit right in, plug and play, plays defense, makes his shots from the outside. I had some comparisons at one point in time to an old Hawk named Al Horford from a standpoint of stepping outside and being able to hit the three. Difference between the two is that became part of Al Horford's game way later on in his career of an Atlanta Hawk, where they developed him into that. Similar to what we saw from John Collins, similar to what we are now seeing from Onyeka Okongwu. It's natural. It comes natural for somebody like Asa Newell. That's where I think that a guy who's not afraid to get his hands dirty and grind it out and be somewhat of a glue guy, willing to do all the little things like Muhammad Gay to keep the ball alive and keep plays alive for the team to be able to get second possessions and just more opportunities at putting the ball in the basket. I think that really benefited the team on tonight. So I just really believe that during that turning point is where we saw guys like Muhammad Gay getting stops, guy like Asa Newell was able to come in and contribute comfortably, not feeling rushed that he has to get in because, we're missing all these other players off the bench. And now I got to step in and do all of these things. By the way, I got all this pressure of being the first round pick and all these other things, not having to worry about any of that, feeling comfortable within his role. Obviously, that's what it's all about. What else is it about? The Atlanta Hawks got a big time game coming up next against the Los Angeles Clippers on the road. If you staying up late, you into that type of thing, of course, we'll be right here after that game concludes, immediately after, to break down all the action. And don't forget, make sure to go check out my dude coming up next, Locked on Hawks podcast. Brad Rowland, he's the real deal. He needs no introduction. He'll be right here with you guys here in just a second. So keep it locked to Locked On. Signing off for the Locked on Hawks postcast. Coming up next, the Locked on Hawks podcast. See you guys after the Clippers game.